Hashtag Trending would like to thank Meter for their support in bringing you this podcast. Meter delivers a complete networking stack, wired, wireless, and cellular, in one integrated solution that's built for performance and scale. You can find them at meter.com/HTT. Bubble? What bubble? Google doubles down on data centers and its own silicon. Is Wikipedia the last line of defense against AI slop? Is Copilot becoming the Windows 11 of AI? And Anthropic Super Bowl ads got under Sam Altman's skin. Welcome to Hashtag Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Let's get into it. If there were a data center bubble about to burst, you wouldn't know it from Google's books. Alphabet, Google's parent, told investors this week that it plans to spend $175 billion in capital expenditures in 2026, with the bulk of that going into data centers and AI infrastructure. And that's a step up from last year. And it's being funded in the old-fashioned way, out of cash flow. Google ended up the year with roughly $110 billion in cash and marketable securities, and it's still generating tens of billions a quarter. Now, this matters because it cuts directly against one of the louder narratives in tech right now, that AI infrastructure spending is peaking, that cloud providers are getting cold feet, or that the economics don't hold. Could be true, but Google is signaling the opposite. Demand for AI workloads is strong enough that it's willing to commit long-term capital at a scale usually reserved for oil majors and utilities. Now, what makes this even more interesting is where the money is going. Google isn't just buying more Nvidia hardware. It's leaning heavily into its own tensor processing units, or TPUs, custom AI accelerators it designed in-house. That changes the competitive dynamic. And Nvidia's biggest customers, not just Google, but also Amazon and even Microsoft, are also becoming its long-term competitors. You might worry about them all, but you might worry about this one with the big pockets. The takeaway is simple. If you're looking for signs that hyperscalers are pulling back, Google isn't one of them. This is a company saying very clearly that AI isn't a side bet, it's a core infrastructure. And Google believes it can afford to build and control more of the stack than almost anyone else. If you look back on this, AWS did a similar strategy. They spent money year after year after year with everyone asking them how they were going to make money, and now they dominate their space. Google seems to have picked up a bit of that strategy, and they can afford it. In a world drowning in rage bait, deep fakes, AI-generated slop, and more, it's worth asking where people can still find information that's calm, sourced, and accountable and accurate. Sadly, many people say they get their news from social media. That alone should worry you. If anyone has looked at Facebook or Instagram and seen the amount of false information and deep fakes, if people are taking this as news, it's scary. Even my beloved University of YouTube has become awash with synthetic content, confidently wrong explanations, and engagement-driven nonsense. Against that backdrop, there is one place that still stands apart: Wikipedia. And a report that I read from an interesting journal called Rest of World looks at how Wikipedia has quietly become critical infrastructure for the AI age, especially outside the English-speaking world. While AI companies train their models on massive portions of the open web, Wikipedia does remain one of the few large platforms with editorial standards, transparent sourcing, and active human moderation. Many of these are volunteers, and the average volunteer will edit 5 times a month, sometimes many, many more. And it's been the godsend in the English-speaking world. But what often gets missed is how much of that work happens in regional and minority languages. Volunteers across Africa, South America, and Asia are maintaining editions that document local history, politics, and culture, material that rarely shows up in commercial data sets. And as AI companies scrape the web, those editions are increasingly used to train the models, even as the communities behind them struggle with rising costs. Thankfully, Wikipedia has been able to make a deal with some of the AI companies, and I hope many of you are also supporters, because it's a volunteer-driven organization that depends on contributions from the public. If you use it, maybe you should pay a little for it. But the uncomfortable truth is that Wikipedia is now doing double duty. It's one of the last places online where civil discourse and accuracy still matter. And it's also feeding the very AI systems that risk overwhelming the web with synthetic noise. If that sounds fragile, it is. And it raises a bigger question. What happens if that last line of defense buckles? OpenAI says it now has more than 800 million weekly users, and some people estimate that on a monthly basis at as high as 1 to 1.5 billion. Some have it higher. Google's Gemini 3 launched with roughly 650 million monthly users, and it's grown to about 750 million. In a market that's expanding fast, most major AI platforms are adding users, with one exception. Copilot, by contrast, appears to be in, a nosedive. Reporting cited by the Wall Street Journal suggests Microsoft's flagship AI product is stagnating or losing users despite being baked into Windows, Edge, and Microsoft 365. This is more than a code red or a red flag. This should be a full-blown, hair-on-fire emergency. When something is everywhere by default and still losing traction, distribution isn't the issue. So part of the problem is that Copilot doesn't feel like a single product. It's a layer spread across different apps, licenses, and pricing tiers, each with different limits and behaviors. Sometimes it helps, sometimes people say it gets in the way. Often it feels like something you tolerate because it's there, not because you actively chose it. At this point, this looks less like a technology failure and more like a design disaster. Some people claim that Copilot has some accuracy problems. Maybe that's true, but I believe that Copilot works largely. It's capable. But it doesn't trigger the reaction that great products do. It doesn't say, I want this. I'd miss this if it disappeared. And until Copilot can win users by choice rather than default, it risks becoming the Windows 11 of AI, shipped everywhere, defended internally, and quietly avoided when people have a real alternative. Satya Nadella is a smart man. If he's using Copilot and he doesn't see this, that's a problem. He needs to call his design team in for what I'm going to call a Steve Jobs moment. There's a famous piece where Steve Jobs apparently held up an iPhone and said, "Sell this? I can't buy it myself." And maybe that's what Nadella has to do. Yesterday, I mentioned Anthropic's Super Bowl ads and why they worked. I've seen a little bit of them, and they're funny. They're cool. They don't sell features. They sell an idea. And it turns out that idea didn't just land with the viewers. It got under Sam Altman's skin. Now, Altman did his classic and acknowledged the ads were funny. But then he did something uncharacteristic. He lashed out, saying, Anthropic serves an expensive product to rich people. He accused Anthropic of being dishonest, suggesting they want to control how people use AI. And then he dismissed them by saying, more Texans use ChatGPT for free than Americans use Claude at all. And then, this is where it gets weird, warned of what he called an authoritarian path. Somehow, Anthropic was trying to control what we see and hear. Well, if they're so small, Sam, how are they going to control everything? One thing is, and this is probably part of what got under Altman's skin as well, Anthropic has closed down OpenAI developers who are trying to use Anthropic systems for their own coding at OpenAI. Listen to what I just said. He was mad because Anthropic wouldn't lend their tools to help him develop a competitive product. Anthropic has a rule that says competitors can't use their tools to develop competitive products. And if that got under Altman's skin, it's not something you want to admit, because it's kind of hard to say you're mad because your little competitor won't let you use their superior tools. Altman has blurted things out in the past, but he didn't even go after Elon Musk like this. So in claiming that Anthropic is no competition at all, what's that line from Shakespeare? Oh, yeah. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. That's what stood out, the tone. Altman is usually careful and measured in public. This time he lashed out, and it didn't sound like a rebuttal. It sounded like irritation. Anthropic's ads were clearly designed to position the company as the underdog, which leads to a simple piece of advice. If your competitor really is small and not a threat, the best response is to let them have their moment and their joke, maybe even share in the laugh. The last thing you want to do is look threatened, or worse, look like you're punching down. When your brand depends not just on trust, but on being liked, that's not a good look. And that's our show. If you want to hear more about some of the AI stories we've been running, check us out on the weekend with Project Synapse. We'll be diving into a lot of things that happened this week. And once again, we'd like to thank Meter for their support in bringing you the podcast. Meter delivers a full-stack networking infrastructure, wired, wireless, and cellular to leading enterprises. Working with their partners, Meter designs, deploys, and manages everything required to get performant, reliable, and secure connectivity in a space. They design the hardware, the firmware, build the software, manage deployments, and even run support. It's a single integrated solution that scales from branch offices, warehouses, and large campuses all the way to data centers. Book a demo at meter.com/HTT. That's meter.com/HTT. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a fabulous Friday.